Hello, Faith Formation families. My name is Mrs. Cathcart, and welcome to our second November Faith Formation lesson about the corporal work of mercy, Feed the Hungry. Today we're going to learn about a saint who is known for her service of the poor and hungry. You know, Jesus calls all of us to serve the poor and hungry. And some saints, like St. Vincent de Paul that we learned about last month, were from poor families themselves. The saint we're going to learn about today, though, was a princess. Meet St. Elizabeth of Hungary. Wait a minute, Mrs. Cathcart. Did you say St. Elizabeth of the Hungary? Is that why you picked her to help us learn about feeding the hungry? Not exactly. As the painter Bob Ross would say, it's a happy accident. St. Elizabeth was born in the country of Hungary, which is in Central Europe. So even though we probably could call her St. Elizabeth of the Hungary, she's actually St. Elizabeth of Hungary, because many saints are named after the town or the country where they're from. Now that we have that cleared up, here she is again, St. Elizabeth of Hungary. St. Elizabeth was born in the year 1207. She was a princess, the daughter of the King and Queen of Hungary. She married a nobleman from Germany named Ludwig, whom she loved very much, and they had 3 children. She was devoted to God, and her husband supported her devotion. When Ludwig and Elizabeth became rulers of the German state of Thuringia, Elizabeth continued her devotion to prayer and service of the poor, using her royal position to help even more people than before. Have you heard of St. Francis of Assisi? There he is. He was famous for giving up everything he had to serve the poor and work for peace, and he encouraged others to do the same. He was just a little bit older than St. Elizabeth of Hungary, and some of his first followers arrived in Thuringia a couple years after she did, and taught her about St. Francis and his way of serving the poor with simplicity. St. Elizabeth decided to live her life like St. Francis. She stopped wearing fancy royal clothes and dressed simply. She baked bread every day to give to hundreds of poor people. She cared for victims of flood and illness and had a hospital built to care for thousands of the sick. One day, Elizabeth was delivering bread she had baked to the poor. She often did this in secret because many people at court thought it wasn't respectable for her to be visiting with the poor. She met her husband, who asked her what she had wrapped up in her cloak. And when she opened her cloak to show him, instead of bread, it was full of roses. When you see St. Elizabeth in paintings, she will sometimes be carrying a basket of bread, and sometimes an armful of roses, and sometimes both. I just love this painting. Isn't it beautiful? St. Elizabeth and her husband Ludwig were very happy serving the poor and leading their people with kindness. And after only 6 years of marriage, Ludwig died from an illness. St. Elizabeth decided that even though she was still quite young, she didn't want to remarry, even though her family wanted her to find another husband. She wanted to devote her life to God instead. She joined the Third Order of Franciscans, committed followers of St. Francis's way of life who are married or whose husbands or wives have passed away. She founded a hospital that she named for St. Francis and served the poor and sick there for the rest of her life. After her death, many sick people prayed for her intercession, which means they asked for her to pray for them to God, and they were healed. She was canonized, which means the Pope declared that she was a saint, just 4 years after her death. Remember that a saint's feast day, the day on which we celebrate them, is the day on which they died, their heavenly birthday. So St. Elizabeth of Hungary's feast day is November 17th, this Tuesday. Think of her on Tuesday and ask her to pray for you. For your service project this week, I want you to follow the example of St. Elizabeth of Hungary and bake some bread for someone. It can be any kind of bread, crescent rolls, zucchini bread. You could get out your bread machine if you have one. It's up to you. In your flock note for this week, I'm giving you a recipe for bread rolls like St. Elizabeth of Hungary is holding in this painting. I'm also providing the recipe for my famous banana bread. That's what I'm making for my service project. Add a nice note and share your bread with someone in need, whether that's taking it down to Open Door to share with the residents there or taking it to an elderly neighbor. It's time for a God sighting. How about a God smelling? Take a deep breath. Can you smell my fresh chocolate chip cookies baking? I think heaven must smell like freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. That's all for me this week. Have fun with your service project and share the love of Jesus. Bye.